In the gleaming showroom of an upscale car dealership in downtown Chicago, sunlight danced off the polished hoods of luxury vehicles worth more than most people's annual salaries. Michael Richardson, a successful software engineer with 15 years of experience and a seven-figure bank account, straightened his designer suit as he pushed through the glass doors. After months of research and saving, he was finally ready to purchase his dream car, a brand new Mercedes-Benz S-Class. The excited flutter in his chest quickly turned to a familiar heaviness as he noticed the subtle shift in the atmosphere. Sales representatives who had been eagerly approaching other customers suddenly became intensely preoccupied with their phones or paperwork. Michael had experienced this before, but he wouldn't let it deter him. He'd worked too hard to let unconscious bias stand between him and his dream. After 10 minutes of being completely ignored, Michael approached a sales representative who was arranging brochures on a nearby desk. "Excuse me," he said politely, "I'm interested in the S-Class." The representative barely glanced up, mumbling something about all the salespeople being busy with appointments. Michael couldn't help but notice another customer who had walked in after him was already being shown around a vehicle. His hand instinctively reached for his phone, thumb hovering over the dealership's review page. But then, a different idea sparked in his mind. Years of navigating similar situations had taught him that anger, while justified, rarely led to meaningful change. Instead, he thought of his teenage daughter, who just last week had asked him why some people still judged others based on their appearance. He wanted to show her a better way. What happened next would not only transform that dealership's culture, but spark a conversation that would reach millions. With remarkable composure, Michael pulled out his business card, not the ordinary one he used for work, but the one that revealed his position as a board member of one of the largest tech companies in the country. However, he wasn't interested in flaunting his status. He had something far more impactful in mind. Taking a deep breath, he approached the dealership manager's office. The security guard took a step forward, but Michael's confident smile and professional demeanor made him hesitate. Through the glass walls, he could see the manager looking up from his desk, curiosity mixing with surprise on his face. Michael knew that what he was about to propose would either be met with defensive dismissal or could become a catalyst for real change. Little did anyone in that showroom know that Michael had spent the last 5 years quietly working on a project that would revolutionize how businesses approach diversity and inclusion training. His personal experiences had led him to develop an innovative program that had already been successfully implemented in several Fortune 500 companies. As he knocked on the manager's door, he wasn't just there to buy a car anymore. He was there to offer something far more valuable. The events that unfolded over the next hour would leave the dealership staff speechless and eventually make headlines across social media platforms. But more importantly, it would challenge everyone's preconceptions about how to respond when faced with discrimination. As Michael stood in that office, about to share his proposal, he remembered his daughter's words, "Dad, sometimes the best way to fight darkness isn't with more darkness, but with light." The question wasn't just about whether Michael would drive home in his dream car that day. It was about whether one man's response to discrimination could transform an entire business's culture and inspire thousands of others to approach similar situations with grace, wisdom, and strategic thinking. And as he opened his briefcase, the dealership manager had no idea that this encounter would become one of the most powerful viral stories of the year. From his briefcase, Michael pulled out a sleek tablet containing dozens of testimonials from CEOs and business leaders who had implemented his revolutionary training program. But before diving into his presentation, he did something unexpected. He asked the manager, David Thompson, to share his own story of how he came to lead this prestigious dealership. The tension in the room slowly began to dissolve as David, initially guarded, opened up about his 20-year journey in the automotive industry. He spoke about the challenges he'd faced, the long hours, and his genuine pride in running what he believed was a welcoming establishment. As he listened, Michael nodded thoughtfully, recognizing the universal desire to be understood and respected. "I noticed something interesting today," Michael said carefully, his voice warm but firm. "In the 15 minutes I spent in your showroom, 3 customers were approached immediately while I stood waiting. I'm curious, What do you think might have influenced that situation? The question hung in the air, not as an accusation but as an invitation to dialogue. David shifted uncomfortably in his chair, his initial defensiveness wrestling with the genuine respect Michael's presence commanded. "We train all our staff to treat everyone equally," he began, but then paused, seeing something in Michael's expression that made him reconsider his standard response. Instead of immediately presenting his program, Michael shared a story about his daughter's recent science fair project. She had created an experiment about unconscious bias in everyday situations, inspired by her own experiences and conversations with her father. The project had won first place, but more importantly, it had opened up meaningful discussions in her school about how small, unintended actions could create lasting impacts. "What impressed me most," Michael continued, pulling up a series of graphs on his tablet, "wasn't just the data she collected, but the solutions she proposed." He then revealed how this father-daughter conversation had inspired him to develop a training program that went beyond traditional diversity seminars. His approach focused on practical scenarios, real-time feedback, and measurable outcomes that actually improved both customer satisfaction and sales numbers. The statistics were compelling. Businesses that had implemented his program saw a 40% increase in customer diversity and a 35% boost in overall sales within 6 months. But what really caught David's attention were the testimonials from skeptical business owners who had initially resisted the program but were now its biggest advocates. As Michael spoke, activity in the showroom continued as usual, visible through the office's glass walls. A young family excitedly circled a new SUV, while a couple signed papers for their purchase. David found himself watching these interactions with new eyes, beginning to notice subtle patterns he'd never paid attention to before. Then Michael shared something that made David lean forward in his chair. He explained how his program had helped another luxury car dealership in Boston not only transform their sales approach, but also tap into an entirely new market segment they hadn't realized they were missing. The result wasn't just better PR. It was significantly improved bottom-line results. "But here's what really matters," Michael said, pulling up one final document on his tablet. "This isn't just about selling more cars or avoiding bad publicity. It's about creating a legacy we can be proud of." He turned the screen toward David, revealing something that made the manager's eyes widen in surprise. The energy in the room shifted as David realized this encounter was about to take yet another unexpected turn. What Michael was about to propose wasn't just a solution to today's uncomfortable incident. It was an opportunity that could redefine the dealership's future. But first, he needed to make a decision that would test his willingness to acknowledge and address the invisible barriers that had been hiding in plain sight. The document on Michael's tablet was a draft partnership proposal, but not the kind David had expected. Instead of a standard diversity training contract, it outlined a groundbreaking pilot program that would position the dealership as a leader in transforming the luxury car buying experience. The numbers were impressive, but what caught David's attention was the personal story attached to the data. Michael shared how just last month, his own daughter had been turned away from a science competition because the organizers assumed she couldn't afford the entry fee. Rather than filing a complaint, she had worked with the school board to implement a blind application process that led to a 60% increase in diverse participation. Her solution hadn't just addressed the immediate problem. It had created a better system for everyone. "Sometimes," Michael explained, leaning forward, "the most powerful changes start in the most unexpected places." He then revealed that his company had been secretly shopping at luxury car dealerships across the country, gathering data on customer experiences. The results were eye-opening, showing a pattern that affected not just minority customers, but also younger buyers, women, and anyone who didn't fit the traditional luxury car buyer stereotype. David's phone buzzed with a message. Another customer complaint about feeling ignored in the showroom. As he read it, Michael pulled up a live feed of the dealership's online reviews. The pattern was clear. While their overall rating was good, there was an undercurrent of similar experiences that were costing them not just sales, but their reputation in an increasingly diverse market. The tension in the room peaked when Michael revealed something that made David's hands grip his armrests. Security camera footage from the showroom, timestamped from just an hour ago, played silently on the tablet. It showed not just Michael's experience, but a pattern of selective customer engagement that was impossible to ignore. However, instead of using this as a weapon, Michael presented it as an opportunity. "I'm not here to shame anyone," Michael said, his voice steady and sincere. "I'm here because I believe this dealership has the potential to set a new standard in the industry." He then shared his vision, a comprehensive program that would not only transform their sales approach, but also create a ripple effect throughout the luxury car market. The stakes were suddenly much higher than a single car sale or even a training program. This was about setting a precedent that could change how high-end businesses approached customer service across the board. David found himself at a crossroads. He could either defend the status quo or embrace a change that could define his legacy as a leader. Just then, there was a knock at the office door. The same sales representative who had dismissed Michael earlier entered with an urgent look on his face. A local news crew had arrived, responding to social media buzz about discriminatory practices at luxury car dealerships. They were requesting an interview about the industry's approach to diverse clientele. Michael's expression remained calm as he reached for his tablet one final time. "Before you answer them," he said, "there's one more thing you need to see." What he revealed next would not only change the course of the conversation, but would challenge everything David thought he knew about running a successful luxury car business. The dealership staff gathered outside the glass walls, watching anxiously as their manager faced a decision that would affect all their futures. The news crew waited in the lobby, their cameras ready to tell whatever story would unfold. And Michael, who had walked in wanting to buy a car, now held the power to transform an entire industry's approach to customer service and inclusion. Michael's final revelation wasn't just data or statistics. It was a live stream of similar situations unfolding at luxury dealerships across the city at that very moment. His tech company had collaborated with a consumer advocacy group to document and analyze customer experiences in real time. The dealership wasn't just facing a single incident. They were witnessing a coordinated effort to expose systemic issues in the luxury retail industry. But then came the twist that no one expected. Among the faces on the screen, David recognized someone, his own daughter, who had been secretly mystery shopping at various dealerships as part of her college sociology thesis. She had been documenting these experiences for months, not knowing her father's dealership would become part of the study. The personal suddenly became professional in a way that left David speechless. The news crew in the lobby wasn't there by chance either. They were part of a larger investigative report set to air next week, focusing on discriminatory practices in high-end retail. Michael's visit today wasn't just about buying a car or even implementing a training program. It was about offering the dealership a chance to be on the right side of a story that was about to make national headlines. "Your dealership has two options," Michael explained, his voice carrying the weight of opportunity rather than threat. "You can be featured as another example of the problem, or you can become the blueprint for the solution." He revealed that several major luxury brands were already in talks with his company, looking for ways to address these issues before they became public relations crises. The sales staff outside the office had grown larger, their concerned whispers creating a backdrop of tension. Among them was a veteran salesperson who stepped forward, asking to speak. With David's nod, she entered the office and shared something that added yet another layer to the unfolding situation. She had been maintaining a private record of turned-away customers who later purchased vehicles at other dealerships, sales they had lost not due to price or inventory, but due to their own unconscious biases. Just then, David's phone lit up with a message from the dealership's corporate office. Someone had already caught wind of the situation, and the regional manager was requesting an emergency video call. But before David could respond, another group entered the showroom. Successful business owners who had faced similar treatment at various luxury establishments. They had been waiting nearby, ready to share their stories with the news crew. Michael stood up, straightening his suit jacket. "I didn't come here today to strong-arm you into anything," he said, his tone sincere. "I came because sometimes the biggest opportunities for change come disguised as challenges." He reached into his briefcase one final time, pulling out what appeared to be a sealed envelope. The contents of that envelope would offer a solution that no one in the room had anticipated, a partnership that went far beyond a simple training program or PR campaign. It represented a complete reimagining of the luxury sales experience, one that could position the dealership at the forefront of a revolutionary change in customer service. David looked through his office windows at the growing crowd in his showroom, his staff, the news crew, the business owners, and somewhere out there, his own daughter documenting it all. The weight of the moment pressed upon him as Michael placed the envelope on his desk. Whatever decision he made in the next few minutes wouldn't just affect his dealership, it would send ripples through the entire industry. The regional manager's face appeared on David's computer screen, demanding answers. The news crew's cameras started rolling, and Michael, still standing calmly amid the chaos, held one final card that would transform this potential crisis into an unprecedented opportunity for change. With cameras rolling and tension at its peak, David opened the envelope. Inside wasn't just a proposal. It was a fully funded initiative backed by Michael's tech company and 3 major luxury car manufacturers. They had been secretly planning to launch a nationwide program to revolutionize the luxury retail experience, and they wanted this dealership to be the flagship location for the transformation. The regional manager, still on video call, fell silent as Michael revealed that corporate headquarters had already approved the partnership an hour ago. They had been watching the situation unfold, using it as a final test to see how the dealership would handle a real-world scenario. David's response in the next few moments would determine whether they would become the face of positive change or a cautionary tale in the upcoming news report. Taking a deep breath, David did something unprecedented. He walked out of his office and addressed everyone in the showroom, his staff, the customers, and the news crew. Today, he began, his voice slightly shaking but growing stronger, we're not just selling cars. We're changing how we do business. He then invited the business owners who had been waiting to share their stories, not as complaints, but as testimonials for why change was necessary. But Michael wasn't finished. He revealed that his daughter's science fair project had caught the attention of a major civil rights organization, leading to a nationwide study of retail discrimination. The results had prompted several luxury brands to commit to a complete overhaul of their sales practices. This dealership wasn't just getting a training program. They were becoming part of a historic shift in customer service standards. The veteran salesperson who had kept records of lost sales stepped forward again, this time with an unexpected announcement. She had been secretly working with Michael's team for months, helping design a new sales approach that had been tested in simulation and showed remarkable results. Her involvement proved that the desire for change had been growing from within the dealership itself. As the news crew captured the unfolding events, David's daughter emerged from the crowd. Her research had already been picked up by several major universities, and she had secured funding to expand her study nationwide. The dealership would become not just a business case study, but an example of how confronting uncomfortable truths could lead to powerful positive changes. Then came the final twist that no one saw coming. Michael pulled out his phone and made a call on speaker. The voice that answered belonged to the CEO of the luxury car brand, who revealed that this entire scenario had been orchestrated not just as a test or a training opportunity, but as the launch of a new industry-wide certification program. The dealership's response today would determine the blueprint for how luxury retailers across the country would be required to handle similar situations. David looked around his showroom, now packed with staff, customers, and cameras. The weight of the moment was palpable, but instead of feeling overwhelmed, he felt a surge of pride. His dealership was about to become part of something much bigger than selling luxury cars. They were about to help reshape how businesses approach diversity and inclusion. So, Michael said, turning to David with a smile, about that S-Class I came to look at. The tension in the room broke as laughter rippled through the crowd. But this wasn't just about selling a car anymore. It was about selling an idea. That change, even when it comes unexpectedly, can be the catalyst for something extraordinary. As David reached for the keys to the S-Class, he knew this was more than a sale. It was the beginning of a movement that would transform not just his dealership, but the entire luxury retail industry. And it all started because one man decided to turn a potentially negative experience into an opportunity for lasting change. The cameras captured the moment as Michael and David shook hands, not just as customer and dealer, but as partners in a new chapter of retail history. Sometimes, the most powerful changes come not from confrontation, but from the willingness to see challenges as opportunities for transformation. 6 months after that transformative day at the dealership, the changes that began in that showroom had rippled across the country. David's dealership had become the most successful in the region, not just in sales numbers but in customer satisfaction scores. The training program, now known as the Richardson Method, had been adopted by over 200 luxury retailers nationwide. Michael did drive home in his S-Class that day, but what he really took with him was something far more valuable: proof that one person's response to discrimination could spark genuine change. His daughter's science fair project had evolved into a full-scale research initiative, with major universities studying the economic impact of inclusive business practices in high-end retail. The veteran salesperson who had kept those detailed records was now heading the dealership's training department, teaching other establishments how to identify and eliminate unconscious bias in customer service. Her documentation had become a crucial part of the new industry-wide certification program, helping businesses understand the real cost of overlooked opportunities. David's daughter's sociology thesis earned her not just top honors, but also a job offer from a prestigious consulting firm specializing in corporate culture transformation. She often joked that her father's dealership had become both her case study and her inspiration. The footage from that day had been viewed millions of times online, sparking conversations about customer service and inclusion across social media platforms. The news report that aired the following week wasn't just another exposé about discrimination. It became a powerful story about proactive change and business leadership. Other dealerships that had been caught in the investigation reached out to David's team, eager to learn from their experience and implement similar changes in their own establishments. Perhaps the most surprising outcome came 3 months later, when the luxury car manufacturer announced a complete overhaul of their sales approach. The certification program that began at David's dealership had evolved into an industry standard, with other luxury brands quickly following suit. Sales representatives now underwent regular training and assessment, ensuring that every customer received the same high level of service regardless of their appearance or background. Michael continued his work in tech, but he became a regular speaker at business conferences, sharing how one potentially negative experience had transformed into a movement for positive change. His company developed an app that allowed customers to rate their experiences at luxury retailers, providing real-time feedback and accountability. The story could have ended differently. It could have been another viral video of discrimination, another angry confrontation, another missed opportunity for understanding. Instead, it became a blueprint for how businesses could adapt and thrive in an increasingly diverse market. 1 year later, David's dealership hosted a special event celebrating their transformation. The showroom was packed with success stories, customers who might have been ignored before but were now proud owners of luxury vehicles. The sales team, more diverse than ever, shared stories of how their inclusive approach had not just improved sales, but had made their work more fulfilling. As Michael stood addressing the crowd, his S-Class gleaming behind him, he reflected on how a simple car purchase had turned into something so much more. Change, he said, doesn't always come from confrontation. Sometimes it comes from conversation, from understanding, and from the willingness to see challenges as opportunities. The dealership that once made headlines for the wrong reasons had become a case study in business transformation. But more importantly, it had become proof that when people choose to address uncomfortable truths with grace and strategic thinking, real change is possible. As the event ended and the crowd dispersed, a young salesperson asked Michael if he'd ever imagined things would turn out this way. He smiled, thinking back to that tense moment in David's office. "Sometimes," he replied, "the best stories aren't about what we lose when we're treated unfairly, but about what everyone gains when we choose to make things right."